And what we're going to do is start off by creating our navigation. So we're going to create a comment here called nav. We're going to start off with our header element. And if you just type out the name of the element and click enter in VS Code, it will go ahead and create that element for you. Next, we want to create a div with a class. So to specify a class, we can say period. And we want to call this class header wrapper. And you don't have to name it this. You can name your classes whatever you want. Go ahead and hit enter. We created our div with the class equal to header wrapper. And we're not going to mess with this for a little bit here, but this class is so we can use styling. Next, we want to create a link element using our anchor tag, and this will create an href attribute. And we want to link to our index.html page, and we also want to link to a specific ID. So we're going to use the hashtag symbol followed by the product's ID. And don't be confused right now, we haven't created this yet, but once we create it in a little bit here, this will make a lot more sense. Inside of this anchor element, we want to create an h4 element and then just paste in some text right here. Now you guys can actually see that text showing up on our live server as a link here. And we can go ahead and click on this. It's not going to do anything because this ID doesn't exist yet, but once we create it, it will automatically go to that ID when we click on it. Underneath this div, we can create our nav element with a class of container. Here we want to create an anchor element and simply link to our index.html. Inside of this anchor, we're going to create an image this time, and we want to go ahead and add our logo from our images folder. So I'll go ahead and select the image that I want here. And another thing we need to do is make sure we add alternative text for people that might be using screen readers. So I'll go ahead and paste that in here. And then we also want to add our loading attribute and make this equal to lazy. Underneath our anchor, we're going to create another div with a class of nav-search. And here we want to use a icon from Font Awesome. So we'll go ahead and navigate to Font Awesome 6, navigate to fontawesome.com. And I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen so you can see it a little bit better. Navigate to icons. And what we want to do is search for the magnifying glass, and you guys can search for whatever you want. And down here you guys will see a number of free options that we can go ahead and use. We're just going to go ahead and use this basic one right here for free, and you guys can change out what style of element that you want right here. We're just going to go ahead and use the first one. We'll go ahead and copy this snippet, navigate back to VS Code, and we can just simply paste that in. Now you guys will see that since we included our Font Awesome 6 CDN up here, we can go ahead and put in whatever icons we want from Font Awesome 6, and it will appear on our website. Underneath this, we're going to create an input element where a user can actually type something in. We're going to leave the type equal to text, but we also want to have placeholder text. And all we're going to put here is, what can we help you find? Now you guys can see that we have our magnifying glass, our input element, and our placeholder text showing up. And the nice thing about this placeholder is once a user types, it disappears. Underneath this div, we'll create another one with a class of full-nav and another class of nav links. Go ahead and hit enter. And we want to make sure we add one more attribute here. We'll say area label, and this is going to be useful for people that are using screen readers. And we simply want to say that these are the Navbar links. Inside of this div, we'll create an anchor element, and we want to link to our index.html. And we simply want to say that this is our home page. We can go ahead and copy this, paste it down below one time. And instead of just our index.html, we want to go to our index.html and our product's ID, and we'll change the text here to shop. At this point, we can navigate to our styles.css file. And the first thing we need to do is create some variables that we can use over and over inside of our style sheet here. So to create variables, we need to use our colon followed by root. And to name a variable, you need to use 2 dashes and then specify the name. And we're going to call this our primary color. And then I'm going to paste in my color value. And today I'm going to be using hexadecimal colors. So I'll just go ahead and paste that in like so. And now that you guys get the idea here, I'll paste in the rest of the variables that I'll be using throughout the video today. Next, I want to create some global styles. So what this is going to do is it's going to target every single element. So what I need to do is type in my asterisk here. The only thing that we're going to do here is specify our font family equal to Arial, and then Helvetica and Sans Serif will be our two backups in case Arial doesn't work. And I want to specify a font size equal to 1 rem. So what this is going to do is it's going to specify that all of our text needs to show up as Arial and be a font size of 1 rem. And this font size might be a little bit confusing at first. So rem is just a relative unit that we can use to make our website responsive a lot quicker than if we use something like pixels. And now we're setting our font size for all of our text to 1 rem. But if I target something further down, like for example, if I target my H4 element that I created and change the font size to something like 3 rem, which is obviously larger, you guys will see that this resizes. And the reason it does this is because CSS reads from top to bottom. So even though we set all of our text to a size of 1 rem, we can override that further down if we specify it underneath our global styling here. So that's an essential reason why you want to put your global styling first. But for now, we'll go ahead and get rid of that because that's not really what we want to do. Next, we're going to target our HTML element, and we want to specify our font size as 100%. Now this is already the default, but it's a good practice to put this in anyway, since we're using relative units. Next, we want to target our scroll behavior and make this equal to smooth. And this is not going to make any immediate changes, but once we have working navigation links, you guys will see why this is so important. Now we can target our body element and simply make our margin 0. Next, we want to target our container class. So to target a class here, you want to start off with a period followed by the name of the class. And here we want to make our max width equal to 80 rem. And we want to change our margin to auto, which is going to make sure that centers. Now we want to target the top bar of our navigation. So we want to target the header wrapper class, and we want to start off by changing our background color. And to use our variable, we can type in var followed by the name of our variable here, and we're going to be using primary. Add some padding, so we'll say padding 0.5 rem. Next, we want to target our header wrapper again, but in this case, we want to target all of the anchor elements within our header wrapper using A. And then what we want to do is target our text decoration, which is going to be our underline, change that to none, and now you guys will see that gets rid of that. And we want to target this class again, but we want to specifically get our H4 element. So we'll go ahead and target it like so. And then we want to change the color of our text to white, so we'll use our variable WT to do so. Change our margin to 0, make sure we include our semicolon here, and text align to the center. Now finally, we can target our navigation links. Start off by targeting our nav element, change our display to flex, which is going to put everything in a row-like format, which you guys can see here. If you want to learn more about flex, I'll link to a video up top and down below. And we want to align our items to the center, justify our content as space between, change our text color, our secondary color, and then add a padding of 0.5 rem and 1 rem. And what we're doing here is using the shorthand property. Next, we want to target the image. So we'll say nav image to only target our navigation image. And we want to change the width here to 5 rem, which is going to make it significantly smaller. So now you guys can see our navigation bar starting to come together. Next, we want to target the nav search class, change our display to flex, and align our items to the center here. Then we want to add a gap between our items here of 0.5 rem. Now we're going to target our nav search again. So we'll copy this, but we only want to target the input element. And we want to change our width to 20 rem, change our padding to 0.5 rem by 0.75 rem. Get rid of our borders, so we'll go ahead and change this property to none. Change our background color to this hexadecimal value and add a border radius of 1 rem. Next, we're going to target our icon, so we're going to use our nav search class again, followed by fa-solid, and change our font size to 1.5 rem. After that, we want to target our nav links class and our anchor elements inside of that class. Change our text decoration to none. Our color, we want to change it to our variable of secondary. Change our font weight to bold, our font size to 1.25 rem, and add a padding left of 1 rem. So you guys can see we have a nice looking navigation now, but the problem is if we go ahead and shrink this down to a mobile size view width, you guys will see that our stuff does not resize responsively for mobile devices. So we need to start fixing that. So the first thing we need to do is navigate back to our index.html page. We want to go above our nav here and create our mobile overlay. So we want to create a div with a class of mobile-overlay nav-links and go ahead and create that. And then we also want to once again include our area label attribute and specify that this is our mobile navigation. So at this point, we want to navigate back to Font Awesome and we want to look for the X icon. So we'll just go ahead and type in X here and hit search. We want to use this one here. Go ahead and copy this and go back to VS Code and simply paste it in like so. And we're going to be using these same anchor elements from below. So we'll just go ahead and copy these, go back within this div and paste them right in here. And so now you guys can see we have two navigations showing up because we haven't added our JavaScript yet. And now we can scroll down and underneath this bottom div here, I'm gonna go ahead and add in our mobile nav button. And this is just another Font Awesome icon that you guys can see here. And you guys see it displaying on the right side. And after our nav element, we also need to create an HR element to add some spacing. Now we can navigate back to our styles.css. First, I want to target the FA-bars, change the cursor to a pointer when I hover on it, change the font size to 2 rem, change the padding to 1 rem by 2 rem, and then we can target the mobile-overlay class, change the padding to 2 rem, change the position to fixed, the display to flex, change the flex direction to column, add a gap of 2 rem, add a background color, use a variable, and we're going to use our tertiary color, change our height to 100 VH, which is 100% of our viewport height. Add a Z index of 2 to make sure this always displays on top of everything. A width of 20 rem. Add a transition from the right of 0.5 seconds, which will be useful for animations that we'll use. Add a padding of 1 rem. Specify right, and we want to say minus 20 rem to move that off of our page. You guys will see that a little bit's still showing up. So to fix that, we want to specify our box sizing and change it to border box. Next, we can target the anchor elements within our mobile overlay class. Change our color to one of our variables. We're going to be using our white. Change our font size to 2 rem and add a padding of 1 rem. Next, we need to make sure we're at the bottom of our style sheet so we can start creating media queries. What media queries are going to do is they're going to help us display things at different viewport widths. So first we need to start off with our min width property. Make this equal to 769 pixels. So what this is doing is saying use the styling inside of this media query from 769 pixels and up. So first we want to target our mobile nav class. And so for anything 769 pixels and up, we want to make sure that we change the display to none. So you guys are going to see that our icon is still showing up here. But if we make this a full-sized viewport, you guys will see that it disappears because now we're over 769 pixels. So we also need to do this again, but for our full-sized navigation. So we'll go ahead and paste in our media query again. And what we're going to do is change this to a max width and specify 768 pixels. And inside of this, what we want to do is target our HTML element and change our font size to 75%. So now you guys can see over here in our live server that everything shrinks down. But if we make this bigger, you guys will see that it enlarges. And the reason it does that is because we're using rems, which is a relative unit. So we can target font size on our HTML element and change it to whatever we want for this particular media query of 768 pixels and lower. It targets anywhere you use rems or a relative unit. Next, we want to target our full nav, and so we'll use a comma, our nav search class. We want to change our display to none. So now you guys can see that since we're in a mobile size viewport width based on our media queries, we only have our logo showing up and our button to open our mobile navigation. But if we make this bigger, you guys will see that our full size navigation shows up instead. Now the problem now is going to be that if we click on this button here, it doesn't actually display our mobile navigation. So at this point, what we need to do is create a basic JavaScript file. So here within the scripts folder that we created, we want to create a new folder called scripts.js. And then back in our index.html, we want to make sure we link to this scripts.js file. So what we can do here to do this is create a script element, and we need to specify an src value of wherever we are storing that. So we're storing that file within our scripts folder and as the scripts.js file. And then to make sure this works, we also need to include the defer attribute. So here in our scripts.js file, we need to use the const keyword to create a variable. And we're going to call this variable nav open. You guys can name this whatever you want. And what we're going to do is use document.querySelector. We want to select a class. So what we're going to do is select our FA-bars. So what this is doing is it's selecting our element with this particular class, which is going to be our icon right here. And we need to do this again for the element that we're going to be using to close that. So what we're going to do is change this variable to nav close. We want to search for our FA-X class. And we'll paste this in one more time, and we simply want to call this variable nav. And this one, we're going to be selecting the mobile overlay class. And so this is going to select that entire element right here. Now we want to use the nav open variable, and we want to add an event listener. And this event listener is going to listen for a click. And then next we can go ahead and tell it what we want it to do. So we're going to pass in a callback function here. And then we simply want to target our nav element, target the style of that element, and change the right property. And you guys will see that VS Code likes to do weird stuff here. So we'll change this back to style.right. And then we simply want to say that we want to change this to 0. So now if I go back over here and click on this, you guys will see that opens our mobile navigation here. And you guys will see that our X icon is not showing up because I forgot to add the appropriate styling. So I'm going to go back to my styles.css really quick and go ahead and target my mobile overlay class, target the icon element, change the cursor to a pointer, and change the color, font size, and padding. And now you guys can see that element. But now if we click on this, we can't close out of that nav bar. So we need to go back to our scripts.js file, and we need to go ahead and copy this, go ahead and paste it down below, change nav open to nav close, and then change this to -20 rem to move that off the screen again. So now if I go ahead and click on this icon here, you guys can see that I can navigate wherever I want on my website, and I can also close out of this navigation like so. And if I make this a full viewport width, you guys will see that our full size navigation shows up.
Tap here to see what happens next.